Way back in the Renaissance, artists figured out a new kind of technology, one that let them basically paint with light and shadow, but not with a brush. They did it with a block of wood. Today, we're going to dive into the really revolutionary world of the chiaroscuro woodcut and find out how this pretty simple but totally ingenious technique basically changed art history. I mean, just look at this. This is an incredible portrait of the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I. Notice the depth, the volume in the fabric, that metallic shine of the gold, and just the way the light is catching all those little details on the armor. This is so much more than a simple outline, right? It's a complex, visually rich image that feels, I don't know, more like a painting or a super detailed drawing. And that really brings us to the big mystery we're unpacking today. How was this even possible? How did they get this level of tonal sophistication using only wood blocks? It honestly seems like magic, especially for a time when printmaking was, for the most part, a way simpler process. So, to understand just how huge this breakthrough was, we first have to get a handle on the problem artists were trying to solve. And back in the early 1500s, printmaking was pretty much ruled by the tyranny of the line. Yeah, early woodcuts were basically just line drawings that were carved into wood. And don't get me wrong, they were great for outlines, but they just couldn't capture those subtle shifts in tone, the light and shadow that give something a sense of volume and drama. And this slide just says it all, doesn't it? On the left, you've got a standard 15th century woodcut. Strong outlines, but it just feels flat. Now look at the right, a drawing from around the same time. See the difference? The drawing uses washes of color and these delicate white highlights to create a real sense of depth and atmosphere. Artists could draw like this, but they couldn't print like this. Not yet, anyway. So the goal was pretty clear. Artists were itching to find a way to mechanically reproduce all those beautiful effects they were already getting in their drawings. Using colored paper, adding those delicate white highlights, creating subtle midtones. They needed a method that was way more sophisticated than just coloring in a print by hand. And that is where the multi-block solution comes in. And the solution they came up with? Well, it was both ingenious and incredibly elegant. It didn't involve just one block of wood, but several of them, all working together in perfect harmony to create one single, stunning image. The technique actually got its name from a core artistic principle, chiaroscuro. It literally means light-dark. It's a concept that was absolutely central to Renaissance painting, and now it was about to totally revolutionize the world of printmaking. So how in the world did it work? Okay, so this breaks down the whole ingenious process. An artist would first carve what's called a key block, and that had all the main lines, just like a traditional woodcut. Then, and here's the brilliant part, they would carve one or more tone blocks. Now for these, they'd carve away everything except for the flat, broad shapes they wanted to print in a specific color. When you printed them one right on top of the other and you had to get the alignment perfect, these layers built up this incredible illusion of light and shadow. It was amazing. And you know what's incredible? We can actually pinpoint the invention to a single explosive year, 1508. Over in Germany, artists like Hans Bergmeyer and Lucas Cranach, who had these powerful patrons backing them, were all experimenting with this new technique. We even have letters from that year describing these groundbreaking prints, just like the one of Maximilian we saw at the start. This was the moment it all began. But the story doesn't just stop in Germany. Almost immediately, the idea spread to Italy, and that's where artists took the technique in a completely different direction. It actually sparked this creative rivalry that would just push the boundaries of what was even possible with a simple block of wood. This slide really highlights the two different philosophies at play. In Germany, the chiaroscuro woodcut was really seen as an evolution of the traditional print. That black line block was still the star of the show, and the tone blocks were kind of like the supporting cast. But in Italy, an artist named Ugo de Carpi, he championed this radical new approach. He often just got rid of the line block altogether, using only layers of tone to build the image from shadow into light. Okay, check this out. This is a classic German example. See how the black lines are doing all the heavy lifting? They define the figures, the trees, all the action. The tone is there, sure, it adds atmosphere, but the drawing, the actual structure of the image, it's all in those lines. Ugo de Carpi, though, he saw his method as something completely new. In 1516, he even went to the government in Venice and petitioned for a patent on what he called his new technique for printing in light and dark. He was basically arguing that this was a true invention and it deserved to be protected by law. And that right there was the revolutionary insight. For the Italians, the goal wasn't just to make a better woodcut. It was to use woodcuts to imitate the soft, painterly quality of tonal drawings. They wanted to paint with their blocks, building forms directly out of color and tone. This just fundamentally changed the whole idea of what a print was, from a drawn object to a painted one. They were creating images that felt less like prints and more like captures of light itself. So we've got this technical arms race going on. What was the ultimate impact? Well, it completely transformed the status of printmaking. It elevated it from just a simple way to make copies to a true art form. Think about it like this. The Chiaroscuro Woodcut took the print from a single layer of information, a simple line drawing, and turned it into a multi-layered work of art. And the best part? You could make hundreds of copies from the original blocks, which made this incredible new art form accessible to a way wider audience. And this is really the main takeaway. The print was no longer seen as just a cheap reproduction of a drawing or a painting. For the very first time, a print could be considered a masterpiece in its own right, a real testament to the artist's skill and ingenuity. This new status had all these ripple effects across the art world. Suddenly, these prints could compete with drawings for visual richness, and collectors started hunting them down. The technique also put the artist's genius on full display. I mean, it took incredible skill to design and align those separate blocks perfectly. And it created this powerful new way to share famous compositions, translating them into this dynamic new medium. I love how the art historian Peter Parshall puts it. He says the final object wasn't just a picture, it was a unique and complex object of graphic design. It was a testament to both artistic vision and technical brilliance, a perfect fusion of art and technology. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? 500 years ago, a simple idea just using more than one block of wood completely changed what was possible. It just begs the question, what seemingly simple, maybe even forgotten innovations are out there right now, just waiting to revolutionize the way we create and see the world today?